Journalist Naoji Yamatumbu, thank you for your update on that story. Moving on now, Egyptian lawmakers are putting forward constitutional amendments that would allow President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi to stay in power for up to 12 years beyond his current term. The proposed amendments have been submitted to the Speaker of Parliament. Any changes need approval by 2/3 of Parliament members, followed by a referendum. The amendments submitted include an extension of the presidential term to 6 years from 4 in Article 140 of the Constitution, and a transitional clause that would reset the clock, allowing Mr. al-Sisi to stay in power until 2034. The president, who was a former general, ousted President Mohamed Morsi of the Muslim Brotherhood in 2013 after mass protest against his rule, and was elected president the following year. The Democratic Republic of Congo's government has defended the decrees that grant ministers lifetime salaries and other benefits. In a statement released, the government said the payments are not to enrich the officials. The two decrees which grant former ministers benefits worth at least $2,000 have been widely criticized, as most of the population in the country live in poverty. The outgoing government said the state was giving the ministers a minimum to satisfy their basic needs: food, accommodation, and healthcare. To matters of security now, forces in Burkina Faso say they have killed a large number of militants in response to an attack in which 14 civilians were killed in the north of the country. The military said armed men attacked the village of Kane in Yatenga province on Sunday night. According to a military statement, the Burkinabe army conducted a large-scale operation in 3 northern provinces, reportedly killing 146 militants. In Ethiopia, over 200 people have been arrested in Benishangul Gumuz state in the west of the country, where they were receiving illegal military training. Authorities say they were attacked by the army and police in Asosa district close to the Sudanese border. Little is known about the group, called the Liberation Movement of Berta People, that has reportedly given most of the training. Tens of thousands of people have been displaced from the area by ethnic clashes. Last October, there were reports that around 50 young men were arrested in a forest camp in the same area where they were being trained. Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed is asking the ruling coalition in the country to accept criticism and opposition in good faith. This was during a question and answer session he held with members of Parliament. The Prime Minister has had several similar sessions with Parliament since he took office last April, revealing a series of sweeping economic and political reforms in the country.
Ethiopia's reformist Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed hosted a question and answer session with members of Parliament last week, one of several such sessions he's held with lawmakers since taking office last April. The 42-year-old former army officer assumed power after his predecessor resigned following 3 years of unrest in the country that have turned the region's politics on its head, including welcoming back exiled opposition and separatist groups, releasing prisoners, and appointing a formerly jailed dissident as head of the election board.
There are many political parties, about 20 of them, who could not undertake any political activity in the past 15, 20, 30 years. Some even as far back as 40 years have come back home from their bases across the globe. It is a major victory for this parliament.
Some lawmakers raised concerns that opposition parties were being included without preconditions which could fuel instability in parts of the country. The Prime Minister has also acknowledged and condemned abuses by security forces, even likening them to state terrorism. But his actions have failed to curb violence that has often pitted different ethnic groups against each other. The homecoming of all these opposition parties is a good thing, in my opinion, because I'm sure there are positive things they can contribute. But on the other side, I'm worried that these parties want to use this to their advantage, and this can be a challenge to the unity that Abiy is bringing. I am seeing activities that can erode this good development. Ethiopia is getting ready to conduct its first census in 10 years. The country has more than 80 ethnicities and has designed its political system around regional ethnic groups, making the results of the census potentially contentious. National elections are scheduled for 2020.
The community of Vanderbilt Park in South Africa is still struggling to come to terms with the deaths of students killed after a school building collapsed. A fourth student has now been confirmed dead this past weekend after receiving treatment at a hospital. 3 students died at the scene and over 21 others sustained injuries when a walkway linking 2 buildings collapsed on Friday. Our correspondent, Natasha Perry, visited the school and now reports.
Emotional scenes outside Hoërskool 3 school as students, parents and the community at large paid their respects to the pupils that lost their lives in a freak accident. Learners who lost their friends retell their horrific experience.
We came out of the hall, me, she and another friend. I was saying goodbye to her and then we heard something cracking and then the bridge fell. We didn't thought that there were kids underneath it, but then everybody started screaming and crying and said there was blood and everything, and then we saw, then we thought, okay, there is actually kids underneath the bridge.
I'm really sad because I lost my best friend, and I just pray for the families and the kids in the hospital, like they would be fine.
Learners are receiving counseling for their traumatic ordeal.
I think there's a lot of emotion, deep sadness, a lot of questions, and I think fear is in their hearts. Where I was last night, the child said she doesn't want to come back to the school.
Students from neighboring schools have also come to show their support for their peers.
One of my friends were in this school, so I just hope that he's not one of them who just got hit.
An aggrieved mother says it'll take time for a child to move on from this tragic experience.
She was very traumatized, and she's not that person that like to speak. So she was crying in the counseling. She was crying. She took a long time.
Political parties like the Democratic Alliance and the African National Congress extended their messages of support and condemned the Black First, Land First comments regarding the incident.
We find it disturbing that at this point in time we still have people that would want to racialize the tragedy that has happened.
Classes at the school have been suspended until further notice.
Currently the school is still shut down. The Department of Labor started yesterday actually to conduct their structural assessment. They should be in a position to can inform us on the way forward.
Now begins the journey for the school and this community to pick up the pieces of their lives. While many questions remain unanswered as to what exactly happened on Friday, police have confirmed that an inquest has been opened to investigate this matter. From Hoërskool 3 in Vanderbilt Park, Natasha Perry, Channels Television News.
Still to come on the program. A South African sculptor waxes lyrical about an African madam to swords. Please stay with us.